What's up everybody, Unrested here, and today I'm in a kind of a strange spot. I'm waiting outside of a client's place and there's a playground nearby, and I'm inside of a giant toy train. And I'll show you a shot of it just to let you know where exactly I'm at and what it looks like. But for now, I just wanted to say, number one, thank you for your questions on Facebook the other day. That made for a really well-received JFAQ. It also brought up some new questions and a new format, and that was really interesting. So again, today I said throw your questions my way. I'm going to give you all day to answer, I should say question me, and I'll make a big video and answer all your questions, like anything as far as taboo, really revealing questions, creepy or weird questions, anything, no limits. So I thought I'd go ahead, I'll start this during the morning time while I'm waiting, and I'll make it in sections throughout the day because it's going to be a lot of questions and I might even have to break it up. So let's start. I'm actually going to name the people and give you some credit. I'm not going to say your full name just in case you don't want that on YouTube. So we'll start with Jose here first. Jose says, language barrier. How does language apply in intimate relationships with boyfriends or girlfriends or wives, etc.? As well, for example, having or raising a kid in Japan. Given Japanese is the primary language, how does it come into perspective? Would English be emphasized as much? Well, that is kind of a give or take situation or a relative situation as far as what is your level of Japanese comprehension and Japanese speaking. If your level of Japanese is higher than the level of English that your better half speaks, then probably you're going to be using Japanese. But if her English or his English is better than your Japanese, probably you're going to end up speaking English. It's really a this or that type of situation as far as which one is the higher level, because obviously you're going to want to communicate at the highest level possible. I myself suggest, if you can, even if you're a very beginner, see if you can split up a day with that person that you're going out with, dating, or married to. Split up your day. And by that I mean half of the day speak English, half of the day speak Japanese. Now, of course, when you're first starting out, you might want to make the Japanese part a little less because obviously you're limited in your communication, and unless all your conversations are going to be "Kore wa nan desu ka? Sore wa nan desu ka?" That's going to get really boring fast. So at the beginning, I'd say, whichever one speaks the higher level of the language of English or Japanese is what you should choose, but still try to practice a little bit of the other person's language no matter what. As for children, my personal philosophy is one parent should speak whatever their native language is and the other parent should speak theirs. Why you would try to speak to your child in a choppy version of the country's native language doesn't really make any sense to me, but to each their own. I'm not questioning anybody's parenting techniques. I myself personally only speak English to my child because I want him to be able to speak both when he grows up. But I would say right now, my child's Japanese comprehension and speaking ability is above his English due to the fact that I am the only person in his life that speaks English, whereas his hoiku and his kindergarten, his nursery school, everybody speaks Japanese, and of course his mother speaks Japanese. Good question though. John writes, how big is the marijuana subculture and how is it tolerated there? Okay, he's actually got two questions. I'll do this one first. Number one, it's an extremely small subculture. As I've said before, any and all drugs are considered hard drugs in Japan, and you face a large amount of jail time if you're even caught with the smallest amount. I would highly suggest staying away from any of those scenes. I myself have never partaken in any and do not wish to, due to the fact that I like staying in Japan and you will be deported if you are caught. I have had a friend in the past deported when he had some mail to him. This will eventually lead to them searching your mail. They will find it. You will get caught. Japanese police are pretty hardcore about that stuff. I do not recommend it. Now, on the other hand, there is the alternative of herb, as I'm sure you've heard. This is a legal substance that you can buy at shops that sell it. It's comparable to the same type of stuff you can buy in UK and America. If you really want to get into that, that's fine. It's legal. I don't have any qualms with it. Personally, I stay away from that scene due to the fact that I am a 34-year-old father who doesn't have time for such. Number 2, do people rent video games or movies there? People rent movies here, but people do not rent video games here. We actually still have the equivalent to Blockbuster. Those of you who are too young to know what Blockbuster is, it was a place where you could actually rent VHS or DVDs. Here we have Tsutaya is the biggest chain. There are some mom and pop shops. People rent movies. They do not rent videos. Video games cannot be rented in Japan. People destroy video games, as in beat them super fast here. When a video game is released, you will find it used for cheap almost a day after. I mean, I'm talking super hard, long, elaborate games. Japanese people do not mess around when it comes to beating their favorite games, so not something you really have to worry about anyway. You'll end up owning it. It would be cool. Okay, this is my friend Postmortem. He's a friend I have who we talk about tattooing and death metal a lot because we're both into that. It would be cool if you could talk about your tattooing progress. As some of you may know, I began to study tattooing recently. It was not actually something I ended up pursuing though. I found my niche in drawing for RPGs instead, and that's what I do now. I'm an illustrator for RPGs. So he's asking, I know you were getting into it about a year ago. Do you have any future plans to do more Flash or anything else on it? Well, not really, because honestly my RPG illustration career took off. So I've still done a couple tattoos here and there. I do have a machine. It is totally legal. You don't need to have any kind of license in Japan. I have an autoclave to wash all my equipment. I'm not a scratcher. I've studied multiple books. I've studied from artists. I've learned how to do it completely. I've tattooed myself. But I'm not really into the scene of being a tattoo artist because I'm not saying this is the way it is in other countries, but here in Japan there is a lot of big bar scenes that are into that, and you'd have to drink up quite a bit with quite a few people to get a lot of clients. I don't really live that kind of lifestyle these days. What is the most haunted place in Japan, and why, if you know the answer to this question's folklore? I don't know the most haunted place, but I know a lot of temples and shrines are haunted. I remember one of the weirdest ones I ever went to. The bathroom of the shrine was haunted, and it was like a really old school, like you squat on the ground type bathroom. And supposedly you could always hear people urinating in there. That's really a strange haunting. But my personal belief is I think there was probably just like an underground well or something close by. I don't know a lot of nearby stories as far as Osaka. If you're really into hauntings and the supernatural, I highly suggest there's a series of very cheap mangas you can buy at konbinis here called Inigawa no Kawaii Hanashi. And Inigawa is a psychic slash ghost hunter man. He's a man who researches a lot of this stuff and goes to these haunted places. And he has really interesting stories, and it's so interesting, in fact, that they make a manga series out of it. So if you're really into that, I highly suggest that series. Barry Jones asks, oh sorry Barry, I said your full name. I hope no one stalks you. Where do you find new music in Japan? Is there radio stations and anything like old school MTV? There is actually Japanese MTV. And guess what? This is crazy. Japanese MTV only shows music videos. Imagine that. Music television showing music. So you can actually watch it on normal Japanese non-cable channels. It's a very small one-week session that lets you know what the top hits are. I guess that's not really underground or anything. If you're looking for really underground stuff, you're going to be disappointed. But if you're really into KPP or Bape, or you're into Funky Monkey Babies, Arashi, AKB, Dream 5, you know, one of those groups, you're going to love that channel. And it also does like foreign stuff too, so it gives them credit as well. It doesn't stick to just Japanese. One thing I love about Osaka is exploring backway alleys and finding hole-in-the-wall places in mom-and-pop shops, restaurants, and coffee shops. Have you come across any hidden places that you would recommend? Yes, there are so many. This guy's got it right here. His name's Rick. He's asking this. This guy's got it right. You're gonna find your best hole-in-the-wall places for any food, cafes, or anything like that. All your best stuff is going to be mom and pop shop stuff. your chain stores, they're okay for, you know, once in a while quick grab of food or supplies or whatever you would need. But man, you are going to find the best places. One I had mentioned before was a small burger shop in Amemura called Critters Burger. It is the most amazing burger shop I've ever eaten at, and that is a really rare thing in Japan because burgers aren't really that great here. But there they are above and beyond anything you could possibly want, and they are super delicious. Okay, how many times have you messed up accidentally and learned things about Japanese culture by mistake? Many times. What were they? This is James asking this question. James. I've made a lot of mistakes with language, and I've made mistakes sometimes with tradition. As far as one time I remember I wore a shirt inside out when I was painting my house one time, and my wife let me know that it's kind of a taboo thing to do, that the dead are actually put in clothes that are inside out, and so for you to be wearing inside out clothes while you're alive is really creepy. One of the funniest language flubs I ever made was when I learned the word seikatsu, which means lifestyle. It's something like you can ask, what's your lifestyle? Like, what do you like to do? Or this is my lifestyle, boku no seikatsu. But one time I asked, anata no yoru seikatsu wa do, or anata no yoru no seikatsu wa nani suru, do suru. And that's like yoru, night, and seikatsu, lifestyle. What's your nighttime lifestyle? Or your nightlife like, right? That's what I thought. But I found out I had actually asked what their sex life was like. Saying yoru no seikatsu is the equivalent to like asking, so what are you like in bed? Luckily, the friend that I asked was very forgiving and understood how I could make that mistake. Have you seen any mahjong parlors in Japan? Sorry, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. That's a Chinese word, I'm pretty sure, and I don't really know Chinese pronunciation. Mahjong? Mahjong? Okay, some of you probably know this game. It's like the equivalent to like Chinese dominoes. Yes, if you come to my area, Tennoji, nearby there is Dobutsu and Mai. Dobutsu and Mai has a lot of oyaji places for that. So if you're really hardcore into the type of gambling, go ahead. How often do you see things marked vegetarian in Japan? Almost never. And that was Christine asked that. James asks, here's the second one. What do you know any vegetarian or vegans in Japan? I know a vegan. I think it's pretty easy to survive as a vegan in the sense that you can eat a lot of rice, and the only thing you may be worried about is they don't really mark anything if it's been like cooked with animal fats or oils, so that might be difficult. Barry asks, do people call you Scott, or do they have a Japanese translation of Scott that you go by? I'm guessing you don't know about katakana, Barry. I am Sukoto. Maybe look up katakana or romaji and research that a little bit. How does restaurant service in Japan compare to the US? It's about 1,000 times better. The only thing I would say that kind of sucks in Japan with the restaurant service is if you ask to change anything, like if you say, I want that burger but I don't want the onions, they'll freak out. They'll be like, but it comes with onions. You'll be like, yeah, but I don't want the onions. But it comes with onions, but I don't want it. Like their head will explode, like they won't do it. I've heard it's much different in Japan, thanks. Okay, that's the end of Ashley's question. Ashley, good question, because that is kind of an issue. It's very good service though. They're quick, they bring you your food super quick, they're super polite. There's none of this like, I'm looking down on this job and really grumpy to work it. Everyone's genki when they work that job, so you gotta commend them on that. They always approach you with a smile. But if you ask anybody to change anything in an order, it will totally freak them out and they can't really handle it. So don't do that. Let's see what we got next. What is Osaka like at night? Osaka's got a great nightlife, asks Michael Brandon. How crowded is it compared to the day? It's not really too crowded, unless it's like Friday night or Saturday night, I guess. Really loud truck. I guess, you know, any city's the same as far as that. Like Friday night and Saturday night are your big nights out. Are there a bunch of lights? Yes, there are a bunch of lights in like downtown Osaka area. If you get out to the countryside, of course there isn't. Number one, are teenagers and those going to school expected to get a job when they are old enough, or is it common? Well, it used to be common that once people finished college, they would get a job that would be the same job for ages, and they could never get fired, and their salary would slowly increase, and they would be loyal to that company forever. But that is changing quite quickly in Japan. These days, a lot of kids stay at home right after they finish high school or college. They get a part-time job, maybe 2 part-time jobs, and they're not really too excited about joining any kind of big corporation. Number one, because they can get fired easier these days. They don't have long-time loyalty due to the fact that the companies themselves don't return that loyalty anymore, and the salaries suck these days. Are Japanese taught about sex education in the same way Americans are? No, not really. They're, I guess, taught more about health in the matter of calorie intake, but sexual education in the health department, I think, is not as well covered, as far as there's not a lot of contraceptives taught about, and there's not as much birth control taught about. You actually, it's a little bit more difficult to get birth control here, and a lot of doctors won't even give it out because I don't know if this is because the population's declining here and they'd like to see more people get pregnant, but I've heard from many people, Gaijin and Japanese alike, that it's hard to get the pill. So I wish I could give you more information on why that is exactly. These are purely subjective opinions as to why that happens, but I don't have any kind of health background research, so I don't feel like I'm a perfect expert on that. Anyway, let's continue. Oh, what's up, everybody? I just got home, and I'm going to go ahead and continue with these questions that you guys sent me, and hopefully finish up the rest of this because it's nighttime now, and I would like to go ahead and finish up everything. So let me leave off where I had said let me continue before on the first part of this video, and I think that was with are there teenagers going to school expected to get a job when they're old enough? Are Japanese taught about sex education? Okay, that was the last one I talked about, right? Let's move on to Barry, who says, are kids getting lazier in Japan like in America due to technology making things easier, since things tend to originate in that general area? That's a good question, Barry. Kids are getting lazier here, but I wouldn't say it's for the sake of technology, although there are aspects that do play into that. For example, a lot of kids are forgetting how to write kanji, because anyone who's ever used a keitai denwa, a cellular phone, or a computer to write in Japanese knows that it'll start to give you predictive text as to what you're writing, even in kanji. That means as you're writing the romaji, or the kana, that is the sound for the kanji that you're trying to type, it'll already start to make suggestions so that you don't even have to try and choose all different types of kanji for all the hiragana or romaji or even katakana that you're writing. If you don't understand what I just said there, that means you probably haven't studied a lot of kanji. Don't worry too much about it, but it is making them lazier. On top of that, the overall sense and, I should say, consensus of the population here is that kids are getting lazier in school. They're getting worse grades. Schools are getting more and more lax. I would say, number one, it's because a lot of teachers are overworked and then just don't feel like doing their best because they're there from freaking 7 a.m. till sometimes 2 or 3 a.m. in the morning, I've heard before. We've got helicopter parents, we've got monster parents who make their jobs even worse. And when you're attacked from all sides, no matter how good of a job you do or how hard you try, and then on top of that the kids don't want to make an effort, what is the motivation to get you to get their life to become better? I think it's kind of right now in sort of a spiral, and unless there's some huge revolution in the education department, I only seen it getting worse. Wow, that's depressing. Are there any good museums? Emma writes, are there any good museums in Osaka or nearby? I'm very interested in Japanese history. It would be cool to go to a museum about World War II. And stuff like about Japan and the smaller islands. Okay, for the smaller islands, I would highly recommend you go to Okinawa and the islands that are nearby there. Okinawa has a wonderful cave system that was, well, I don't know if I would call it wonderful, but it's a great, well-preserved
cave system that was dug out for trenches that were made during World War II, when the Okinawans knew that they were about to get stormed by the Americans. It is a bit of a depressing place because you get to see the kind of life they had to try and live, which was harsh. The Japanese government did not support its troops very well, and supported Okinawa people even worse because, as many of you might know, to this day they're still kind of persecuted as Okinawans. They didn't always belong to Japan. They used to be their own country, so they still suffer from that. Kwaiso Ryukyu. Are there other good museums nearby? My personal recommendation is that if you really want to go to a good museum, go to any of the shrines or the temples or the castles that are nearby. Within those, they have been made into museum-like areas. If that's the type of history thing you want to hit up. Of course, we have our own science museums and stuff like that, but nothing massive that I would recommend right now. Do kids in high school really have to fill out career forms like in anime? I don't know if that happens. I don't think so. From what little I know about working in a high school, because I worked in high schools and junior high schools and elementary schools back when I used to teach. They did not fill these out. They did fill out like worksheets that said like, what are your dreams and stuff like that, like what's your dream job, but you know, I mean, you could fill that out. It doesn't mean you're going to get a job at all. With so many people living so close together, this is Barry again, same person, writing another question. That's fine, it's a good question. With so many people living so close together and walls being thin and people knowing who you are, is it hard to get privacy? Yes and no. If you live in an older apartment like I do, mine's built in the 1970s, obviously the inside's been refurbished, that's why it looks so nice. Humble brag. If you go living inside of one that's older, the walls are actually thicker in an older apartment. Now, if you go super old, like where it's tatami mat and, you know, paper doors and stuff like that, obviously, yes, that's going to be very easy to hear people, and that is why there's things like love hotels. Love hotels exist for the reason of wanting privacy when you want to get a little bit intimate with that special someone, you know what I'm talking about? And that's what those are for. So, I mean, yeah, okay, privacy is an issue, but there's loads of cafes, internet cafes that are insanely cheap, and there's love hotels if you really want to go there. I remember one video you did where you were in a car and you said that the situation for leaving your family back home was different for everyone, and you told a story about your mom and how I told she was like sad in this, and like she was sad I was going to Japan. That's what he's talking about. How your parents were dealing with it. Since you have had a wife and kids, do you have any advice on things to say to help or convince them, or actions speak louder than words? I think what he's trying to say is like, has their view changed since you've moved here and started a whole entire life? Well, during that time, yeah, I'd only lived here I think like 2 or 3 years. So my parents were still kind of like, I don't know about that whole Japan thing. And that's the voice they actually use. They talk like that. And they were a little bit confused as to why I was still here, like what were my future plans. But I will say, after I did get married, I had kids, I bought a house. By the way, I'm 34, if I haven't already said that in other videos. People, whenever I say I have kids and a house and everything, they're like, aren't you too young to be doing that? I'm 34, I'm an old man. I'm not an old man, but I'm 34, that's old enough to have kids. I'd say after that happened, my parents really, I mean, their view on the whole thing changed. They're super proud of me. They're super happy to have grandkids. They don't mind coming to Japan to come see their grandkids. They're stoked on my wife. They love her. They like her family. Her family likes them a lot. They love meeting each other. It worked out really well. They're really proud of me. They're proud of my career here. They're proud of the life I've made for myself, the fact that I'm a property owner, that I have a family, that I, you know, my wife and I together support a family. They have no complaints. So things really did change. So actions do speak louder than words, yes. Make something of your life when you're here, and perhaps your parents will be quite happy. What consists of most of your diet in Japan, if that's an okay question to ask? That's okay to ask Pavlo. Am I saying this right? P-A-V-L-O-S, Pavlos? I'm so sorry if I'm butchering that name. I'm not even going to try your last name. My diet is mostly fish and rice, as you would expect. Lots of fish and rice. Some vegetables too, obviously. I like to eat daikon, bok choy, stuff like that, but I mostly stick to fish and rice. Do the Japanese have any expectations or standards? This is from Ryan. Sorry, I'm forgetting everybody's name. Ryan says, do the Japanese have any expectations or standards for foreigners socially? Or do they not really mind if we're a bit blind to their culture, etc.? Actually, you know what? Ryan, that's a good question. And a girl right below you named Maggie said, and I'm going to read these both together because the answer is kind of the same for both of these. Racism towards other Asians. Do some of the Japanese hate or have prejudice against Asian Gaijins and just prefer non-Asian Gaijins and treat them differently? I heard Asian Gaijins don't get special treatment and just treat you like another Japanese. Like they hold expectations from you. I'm fine with that, I guess, but do they belittle you? Maggie, that's a very good question. You've obviously researched your stuff. I like to see that with viewers who ask questions. And Ryan, your question plays into this because if you're like a big, white, bumbling gaijin who makes a few mistakes that are really obvious mistakes, you're right. They will totally be like, well, come on, he's just a big, silly gaijin, you know. In the nicest of manners. I'm not saying that they're being racist by any means. But they really don't. I mean, it's really obvious you have no Asian background at all. So they don't really hold you up to much expectations. Now, that's kind of silly considering me as a white American is no different than an Asian American. We pretty much probably grew up in almost the same identical way with a lot of the same type of friends at school and everything. So, but for Japan, it's really not. They don't see it the same. They expect that you're either from nearby, like, you know, one of the eastern countries, or okay, sorry, cut off there for a second. Or perhaps were raised in a completely Asian household, and they are going to expect that you will have some sort of knowledge of their customs, for example, eating with chopsticks. Now, it may go so far as, like, if you're Korean, they may expect even more because, now I'm not trying to stereotype, but South Koreans do have some of the same customs as Japanese people, okay? I'm sorry. Don't get mad at me, South Korea. Don't attack me. I don't care about the islands. You guys can have them, or Japan can have them, or China can have them. I don't care. Don't get angry at me. So I will say that they do kind of hold you up to different expectations if you look very, very, very Asian. I have friends, like a Vietnamese friend from Australia who is 100% your typical Australian, but he says people nonstop ask him for directions completely in Japanese and think he's Japanese and expect him to do Japanese stuff, and he can't speak one word of Japanese. So that kind of sucks for him because he doesn't want to be Japanese or act Japanese or learn much Japanese. And, you know, why should he? I mean, he's Australian. He's not Japanese. So, as for, yeah, us other white guys, yeah. Haido, am I saying your name right? Is this a Japanese name? If it is, then I've said it right. Asks, bullying behavior in Japanese school. Well, okay, you just say bullying behavior in Japanese school. What about it? Like, what's your question? You've made a statement. And two, you're asking why most Japanese don't speak English. I talked about this before. They don't speak English much in Japan because it's Japan. They don't really need to speak English. It's Japan and they speak Japanese. You know, it's good here and there for international companies like Uniqlo, but honestly, they don't really need it. Melissa Sutcliffe says, I'm a bisexual girl. Are there any clubs or places to meet Japanese lesbian women? Tokyo has a big gay district, and is very big into LGBT stuff. They have, actually, one of their politicians is a lesbian woman in Tokyo, so they have a little bit more open mind there. If you live in the countryside, I'd highly suggest you keep it a secret because they're completely closed-minded there. 2.5, Majiya Bayatsura. What happened to it? Well, Sam and I got super busy. And metal and rock music in Japan. Easy to come across as in the West, or super expensive in shops? This is weird, and this is going to go for all CDs, so I'll just say it. CDs that are made in Japan are actually more expensive than CDs that are imported to Japan. That's why Japanese CDs always have extra songs on it. That's why they have extra tracks. That's the only way they can try and sell their CDs here. Them printing CDs here is more expensive than if they have it imported. I don't know why they can't do it as cheap as other countries. My personal opinion, I think it's kind of money grubbing but maybe there's more to it and I haven't researched it enough. So don't hold me to that opinion. It's highly subjective. Anyway, that's it. I did all the questions right there. I'm going to end it here because my battery, I can see it flashing and about to go dead. This has been another Facebook JFAQ. Guys, great questions. Keep it up. I think we're going to do this again next time. I'm Unrested. See ya.